This episode addresses topics of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Please be mindful while listening and prioritize your well-being. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org.
My name's Evangelina. I am a survivor of sexual, mental, physical, and emotional abuse. I was diagnosed with CPTSD, anxiety, and depression when I was about 22. The word restore has its Latin roots, the meaning renewing of something lost. I lost my body for a time, this vessel that is supposed to hold me. Thankfully, I did not lose my spirit. I was destroyed by fire when I was young. Although I'm unsure of the age that it all started, 3, 4, maybe 5. What I do have memory of was the most beautiful, bold, deep auburn-colored hair shining so brightly, and I was drawn to its glow, its beauty, until that color became a raging flame, destroying anything on its path. I was a little girl who stood innocently in the direction it was heading, not knowing that I was about to be burned alive over and over. I was too young to understand that I was no longer safe in my body, and there was nothing that I could do about it. I felt powerless. I was in the pathway of my father's physical and mental abuse. I responded to the flames the only way that I knew how. I learned the art of walking on glass. Striving to consistently fan out the flames through complying, pleasing, obeying, and lying. But no matter what I did, bruises, cuts, and welts can be hidden behind masks. Masks that I wore well. Camouflaged behind clothing and doing whatever was asked whenever it was asked. If I could appease the flames, then perhaps my sister, my stepmother, and even our dogs and I would be safe in our bodies just a little bit longer. I had not yet gained the wisdom to understand that sometimes it is not always our own pen that crosses our own paper to write our stories. Sometimes other pens come across our pages and leave merciless impact on the twists and turns that our stories take. I had not yet gained the understanding that as a child there is nothing I could do to know safety. It is not for a child to know when they are 3, maybe 4, maybe 5. It is for others to watch out for that child standing in the path of a raging fire. Yet I did not have someone who kept vigilant watch over where I was standing. So I responded in the only way that I knew how. Until I was 8 years old. Things became bad enough that I couldn't lie anymore. The fire was burning a destructive path, and that eventually came to light. But my body was already seared, as if a tattoo etched on my skin with a certainty that my body was meant to be an attraction for abuse. That somehow, when the flames had reached me, left in the wake were these charred remains doused in an accelerant waiting for the next backdraft to erupt. That backdraft erupted 5 years later, when I was 13. A different family member this time. A family member burning and thrashing in the heat of his own pain, saw the only way that he could escape was to violate my body. Sexually. Lying re-entered my life. Only this time, it was those closest to me telling me that I was a liar. That I had provoked this fire because of the clothes that I was wearing. Once again, I had stood in the path of a raging fire, though I had thought I was safe. But I wasn't. Much of the time, I felt like not only did I attract these monsters, but somehow they knew that I would be facing them alone with no one in my corner that would keep me safe. Further charred by a second fire, I stepped outside of my now singed vessel that I was residing in, mastering the art of detachment. I left my body often to a place up in the stars over the railroad tracks. For years upon years, that felt like the only safety that I could find, while also trying to stay inside of this vessel, searching for how to fill these holes that the flames had burned through. My spirit knew I was more than this burned vessel that I now inhabited. The flame had scorched a wire in my mind that kept communicating, "This is the only thing that your body is meant for. The only thing that I deserve." Before I learned otherwise, before new life could spring forth from the blackened landscape, I found myself standing in more wildfires, wondering when, if it would ever stop. As a teen, once again, another family member. The next flames of physical, mental, and emotional abuse. An affirmation. This, the only thing that your body is meant for. At 17, I entered a relationship, became pregnant, and ended up marrying someone that I didn't know. My mouth said I do, though I'm not sure if I was really saying "until death do us part." I was listening to this wire feeding my mind that I deserved nothing else. What mattered most was that I was saying yes to someone. My spirit knew what I was not yet meant to see. The fire struck again, fanned by alcohol, when my now ex-husband was under the influence of this accelerant. I stood amidst the leaping flames one particular night when my daughter was just 2 weeks old. She was sleeping above my head on the floor at a house party that we shouldn't have been at. My stomach was being plummeted with his foot, and the force of his body behind the kick. I had taken his keys so that he wouldn't drive intoxicated, but he was determined to attempt to drive 97 miles to a White Castle for him and those at the party. I thought this would slow down the flames, but it only seemed to intensify them. But my spirit began to rage its own flame, looking at my little girl. She would never be left to stand in the pathway of an oncoming fire like this. My spirit was not yet fully restored from the relentless fires that had charred so much of the vessel that it resided in. I would need to look the flames in the eye one last time before my spirit relocated the nourishment that had been stolen from it. I birthed new life again when I had a son. Then the flames raged once again when he shoved his office chair at me in the basement of our home. Broken, bleeding as I tended to my injuries in the bathroom, my spirit told me that I needed to check on my children. I rushed into the kitchen in time to observe my daughter wiping the floor to clean the blood trail that I had left behind. She wasn't even 2. In that moment, the fire in my soul burst into flames. My daughter would never be left to stand on the pathway of an oncoming fire like this. I, her mother, would always keep a vigilant watch that she would never be put in harm's way. No one would ever take their pen and write on the pages of her story in the way the pages of mine had been written on. Nor my son. Nor this vessel that I inhabited as my body. In that moment, my body might have appeared charred and disfigured from countless devastating fires that had attacked it repeatedly. But underneath, hiding under the bruises and the welts and the cuts, was a spirit that was not, could not, and never will be burned beyond the ability to restore. to renew that which was only a temporary lost. It has been 6 years, and no longer do I stand on any path where there is potential for a fire to break out. Diagnosed with CPTSD, anxiety, depression, these titles precede me. Because every day I focus on restoring my body so that it is the best vessel it can be for my spirit to retreat. I hold this body in a maternal sacredness, resting it when it needs rest, fueling it with food for these times when the flames were too intense for me to eat. I drink plenty of water, for fire can also leave one parched and dehydrated from the heat. I allow space for letting go of this internal energy that still wants to surge through my body, where my body held the score of physical, emotional, and sexual trauma the flames delivered. The energies of anger and grief, of fear, that I still have holes in me. And what if these holes are magnets that the flames can see? I remain hypervigilant of these fragile places in me, in which I do see new skin replacing what was once charred. But oh, the skin is so delicate, like my newest baby's skin. And yet I also see the skin is beautifully aged, maybe loose here and there from the years of stretching and receding, wrinkled in all the right places that communicate where laughter took place and where wisdom set in around the eyes from observation, from drinking in the joys and the wonders that have graced each day of my life. The skin holds scars from where the flames reached it, but those scars are badges of the warrior spirit housed beneath this skin. Inspired by those that I have had the sacred honor of walking beside as they take their last breaths, holding the hands of beautifully aged skin filled with a complete and beautiful story, I rest on this paper below my arms, and I pick up my own pen. And together, mind, body, and spirit, we're restored. I've created a somatic activation class for all people in which they get to process physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually the things that they've gone through, the things that they need to hold on to, and the things that they need to let go. I am a survivor in every sense of the word. I have found my power. I have integrated into my body, and I'm proud of myself and where I've come. To this day, there are so many of us that experience other people's pen on the pages of our stories. But you're able to take that pen back. You're able to make art out of those lines that you didn't want on your pages. Chances are you know someone that is experiencing abuse, whether it's in your face or not. And the best thing that we can do is educate ourselves on how to have these uncomfortable conversations. They are uncomfortable, but they're happening. There's a place of support. There's a place of peace. There's a whole sisterhood here that is willing to support you through your survivorship. And we walk hand in hand in all of that with you, because we were never meant to do this alone. I'm so grateful for the Survivor Sisterhood. I wish that these were not the circumstances that we all got to come together and join hands, but they are. They're a part of our story. And Just like I said in my story, there's charred remains everywhere. And some of the most beautiful flowers and possibilities are going to come from those charred remains that feel impossible to get through. We are all living proof that we can overcome this. And you can too.
This podcast is intended only for educational, inspirational, and entertainment purposes. The purpose of this podcast is not to replace the counsel of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org.